From the studios of Foxborough Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Welcome to another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is Julie Love. I'm your host. Today we have an exciting guest. His name is Chris Zannetos from Congress candidate for Massachusetts 4th District. Chris, thank you so much for coming to Around Foxborough today.
Thank you, Julie. It's my pleasure.
Wonderful. Chris, so please tell our audience who you are, your background, bio, everything that people need to know about you.
Sure. So thanks, Julie. So I am not a politician, although I am running for Congress here in the 4th District. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I've started 3 companies here in Massachusetts, created hundreds of good paying jobs for folks, along with a lot of other folks working with me. I also founded a nonprofit that brings companies together with schools to create more opportunity for people in marginalized communities to get access to STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math, and good jobs. And as I said, I am not a politician. I didn't plan to run for this, but I'm so very concerned about, the state of our country and, frankly, the 2 most important things to address, which are the huge economic divide. We've had this economy that works for only people at the top and leaves everyone else behind. And secondly, that we've got a Congress that's paralyzed by hyperpartisanship and can't lead us through this transformation of our economy. And when I went to see the candidates, who are all great people in this race, I just didn't see any experience around job creation or educational paths, building new paths to good jobs. So I felt that I needed to run.
So is this the first political race that you have?
It is. The only thing I've done in politics before this is I was an intern for the late Senator Ted Kennedy, which was a fantastic experience. I did that when I was in college, and I learned a huge lesson from him, which is you can fiercely advocate for your values and your policies, but at the same time, find a way to work with people you disagree with to get things done. And that really is a major reason I'm in this race, to try to get things done instead of just go down to Washington and yell at people and add to the discord.
So if you don't mind, to maybe share some technique that you learned from Ted Kennedy about disagreement.
Sure. Sure, I'll add 2 things. So I think, when we look, I've got to tell you, so one of the things you may or may not know is because of COVID, I've been riding my bike through every town in the district to meet with small business owners and meet with the people and hear them. And consistently what I hear from folks is they're just tired of the partisanship. They're tired of inaction. They want Congress to work. And I think what I learned from Ted Kennedy were there 2 keys to that. One is you have to build relationships. If all you do is yell at each other or go on CNN and say that the other side is evil, you're never going to be able to work together. You have to build a relationship. And there's a great group down there in Washington that many people don't know about. That's a caucus called the Problem Solvers Caucus. 24 Democrats, 24 Republicans who try to find ways to work together. So that's one thing that I'll join when I get down there. The second thing I learned from Senator Kennedy was you build win-wins. You try to help the other side get a win so that you can get a win for the people. And that's something that I've done in my private life. I've actually convinced 8 companies to invest $500,000 in Mass Bay Community College's cybersecurity certificate program to create a new path to cybersecurity jobs for people who can't afford 4-year college education. And it's that sort of win, gets value for the companies, gets value for Mass Bay. We've got to do that down in Washington. Create value, and then we'll get progress for the people.
Well, thank you very much for sharing that. And then what kind of focus do you have during this campaign when you are talking to people, and then how do you make a difference between the other candidates who are running?
Sure. So as I said, one of the consistent things, and I've been in all 34 towns. I've actually visited 117 small businesses, and I've talked to over 500 people. during this tour on my bike. And number one, consistent thing I hear is get something done. Number two is people are concerned about their financial security and the financial future for their families. They recognize we've been all very concerned about the health aspects of the pandemic. We've done a pretty good job here in Massachusetts of getting that under control. And we have hopes that we'll get a vaccine in place pretty soon. We still have many hurdles to overcome, and people are concerned about going back to school and what does that mean and how do we do that safely. And then when they go beyond that, they start talking about their concern that we have the highest unemployment of any state in the union, that this unemployment, 20% unemployment, isn't just in the more urban areas like Fall River, but go all the way up to Easton in our bedroom communities. And so this is my area of focus, is how do we make our economy work for more than just 10 to 20% of our people? How do we create good jobs for people to replace the jobs that are being eliminated through automation and globalization, and create good paths for people to get there where they don't have to find a way to spend $250,000 for a college degree and go deep and usually go deeply in debt. This is what I've been working in with my nonprofit organization and with companies and schools. And this is what I think our government has to drive. We've got to solve that problem.
Well, thank you for sharing. So you have a really technology business background, MIT Sloan School, and then you are serving a couple of the board members, WPI, different organization. Would you please tell us about that?
Sure. So yes, I have a strong technology bent. I went to MIT as an undergraduate and got my degrees there and followed through to go to the business school, excuse me, at MIT Sloan. And since then, I've been in the tech world. I've started 3 technology companies. The last 2 have been around cybersecurity. I have, of course, been involved in other areas. You mentioned WPI. I sat on the Data Science Advisory Board there, but also the Advanced Cybersecurity Center and the Mass High Tech Council, where I've been on the board. I've tried to give back to the community and try to bring the community together to solve tough problems. One of the things that struck me also, which I didn't mention in response to your last question, is not only do none of the candidates in this race other than me have this experience in technology and creating good paying jobs and working on education on the end of the education process to create these new paths. There are only 6 people in Congress who have this experience. 6 people when technology is driving change to basically every part of our lives. And this is why we see that Congress is unable to lead. We need more people down there who have experience in these technologies so that we can hold the big tech companies accountable. We can help the big tech companies serve the community better. And we can make and drive investments in the places which will create these new growth jobs, which really are technology driven, regardless of what industry they're in. They can be in publishing or distribution, but they're tech driven jobs like cybersecurity or user design and experience jobs.
Well, thank you. So when you were to become Congress and then go to DC and then represent us, and with your background and knowledge, what is your strategy to bring all these things together? And do you have a specific plan?
So I do. Excuse me. So one of the first things that I'll do when I get down there is, as I suggested, is I'll join the Problem Solvers Caucus. So I will find other people who, like me, are focused on how do we get progress? How do we get things done for the American people instead of getting stuff done for us? So that will be key. However, the first piece of legislation that I'd like to actually introduce is what I call the New Collar Jobs and Education Investment Act. Right? We have jobs that are technology related, like cybersecurity, that really we don't need 4-year college education for someone to be able to be effective in those jobs. We have 9,000 of those cybersecurity jobs chronically unfilled here in Massachusetts. When you look across all the other sort of disciplines, environmental technician, biotech technician, data analysts, There are millions of these jobs across the United States unfilled because every company is looking for a 4-year graduate. Well, I believe what the first thing I will do down there is that we should invest in our community colleges and vocational schools in 1 to 2 year post-high school programs. We should give tax credits to companies to invest in their people so that if they invest money in their people going to get these 1 to 2 year certificates and degrees, they can take a tax credit, just like we give them a tax credit when they buy a new piece of equipment. And we need to invest by delivering what I view as a GI Bill-like program to give no interest loans to our people to go into these programs that will be forgiven if they graduate, give 120 hours of community service, hopefully working with schools, after 2 years. Because after 2 years, they would have paid more in taxes than the cost of their education. That's the type of win-win that I'm talking about. It's good for the government, it's good for the companies, it's good for the schools, but most importantly, it's good for the people who cannot get access to good jobs because they can't afford this lottery ticket that's $250,000 college degree.
Well, thank you for that. And what has been the challenge during this campaign because of COVID or something that maybe you are facing during the campaign?
So absolutely, COVID is a challenge, right? We're, and of course, compared to the sort of healthcare challenge that people face, and unfortunately, my own family had suffered, unfortunately, the tragic consequences of COVID. So I understand that very dearly. So relative to that, what we have to do in the campaigning is really minuscule. But the fact is that it's been very hard to meet people. So because of that, I've actually biked through every town of our district. I've met with 117 small businesses just to hear how they're doing. And, I hear some pretty consistent things. One consistent thing is, please go down there and just get stuff done because we're tired of the inaction. We're tired of the hyper-partisanship. I also hear how people are affected by, and certainly the small businesses are affected by the regulations that come from Washington from people who just don't even understand how jobs are created. Right? Half the businesses I talked with couldn't get access to the PPP loan program from the federal government because they didn't have the right banking relationship or they didn't have enough history of tax returns. Well, these folks still had to find a way. But I'll tell you, the biggest thing I learned from biking through every town, and maybe it was a reminder, is that our people and our communities are good. I mean, I met people, I have some of the stories that I heard. I met people who got together to sew masks for people who are homeless or couldn't afford them because they were out of work. I met a woman who owns the Pearl Restaurant in Taunton, and she actually allowed a catering company to set up next to a restaurant to sell their food, basically in competition with her own, because they were going to go out of business. Now, who does that? Well, good people do that. And, I think it's time that we had a Congress actually that was worthy of our people, because really at the grassroots level, our people are working together to get through this pandemic and the economic consequences of it. And so for me, that's honestly, that has been the most pleasurable and inspiring thing about being in this race, was just talking to the people and seeing all that they're doing for each other. By the way, they don't ask whether someone's a Republican or a Democrat before they help. They just do it. And that's just inspiring.
Well, that sounds very inspiring. And then sorry to hear about your family with the COVID. So I know you have sent us some campaign video. So let's watch that together.
Okay, I don't even know which one we sent, so I'll be sort of surprised.
Here's the video.
I never felt as though I worked for Chris. I felt as though I worked with Chris.
He has some of the greatest integrity of anybody that I know.
Chris Zannetos started 3 companies that created hundreds of jobs here in Massachusetts.
When the company struggled, Chris cut his own pay instead of laying off workers.
If Chris got a bonus, everybody got a bonus.
Chris sat down next to me and says like, hey, when I said everybody, I meant everybody, even though I was an intern.
We need somebody like Chris in Congress.
I'm Chris Zannetos, and I approve this message.
Nearly every candidate for Congress in our area would eliminate private health insurance, except Chris Zannetos.
Every employee at the companies I built had good health care. We need universal health care, but it's wrong to force millions to give up the health care they like. I'm Chris Zannetos. I approve this ad because I support Joe Biden's health care plan. Let's expand Obamacare and lower the cost of prescription drugs. Let's make healthcare affordable now.
Well, thank you for sharing that video. And then how is your family supporting for you to be running for the Congress since you actually never be involved in politics and all of a sudden you're running for this big position? Like, are they supportive or surprised?
Yeah, so, well, I did have to answer my wife's question when I came home from a meeting of seeing the candidates, because I originally went to see candidates to see who I could donate to. And I came away from it just unhappy that we just didn't have the right skills and experience to go down to Washington. So when I came home, I apologized to my wife and said, I think I need to run for office. And she said, why the heck would you do that? And I explained it to her, right? Ultimately, I am desperate that we not let the next generation inherit this mess that we have, the divided country, the dysfunctional Congress. We have to do something. So she gets it. And by the way, she's very patient. I always say, and this is a good analogy for Foxborough, I outkicked my coverage in the matters of love. She's far too good for me, so she's very patient. But, she's had to live with me, and she's been patient with it, starting 3 companies from scratch, taking no salary for years as the companies started to form before they actually took off and became big. And now the only difference is a lot of the time she didn't see me doing that full time around the house. But with COVID, she's had to actually see the sausage making of actually starting up something. So in some ways it was very familiar for my family, but because of COVID, in some ways it was a little bit different. But, I've got a great supportive family. I've got 2 children. One just graduated from BU as an electrical engineer, and my daughter's working in educational equity. And they know I'm doing this. I'm trying to do this for them and their generation. And they're very supportive, and they love to give me advice and also educate me on things that I can't see. And it's great.
Well, I'm very happy to hear your family is very supportive. And I know that you felt a little bit frustrated with seeing the other candidacies, and then you ran for it. And so how is it so far when you have a debate with other candidates, and just to listen to other people? And then how do you think you will be so apart from other people who are running?
So first of all, I want to be clear that the other 8 candidates are good people. And actually, I guess there are now only 7, 1 dropped out. But I'll include the 8th as well, right? They're all good people, and they're trying to do good things. I just was frustrated that I didn't see the experience, right? Because basically we have 6 politicians, a lawyer, a person who's been basically in the bureaucracy of the UN or academia, and then myself. And really, I saw no one who had really real world experience about how the world works, and in fact, I see that in the debates. One of the people who is running for this said, I don't know anyone who likes their private health insurance. And I suggested that they actually talk to people who work for businesses instead of in academia or the UN, and they'll actually find a lot of people do. And that was my big concern, is that we just weren't sending the right experience down there. It wasn't that they were bad people. They aren't. They're very good people. And frankly, we all will bring very strong democratic values down to Washington. it's really the differentiation is the experience. And I think I shocked some people in some of the debates because I actually complimented a couple of the candidates. They've done some great things. And I believe, what's right is right. And I'm not going to try to suggest anything otherwise. I think we can be positive. I think we can, not focus on fighting when we go down there, which is what the other candidates seem to focus on, and find a way to get things done. Embrace people, embrace new ideas, no matter where they come from, that may solve the tough problems, and be honest where the real problems are. And that's what I'm trying to bring to this campaign, and that's what I try to bring to the debates.
So we have only few days left before the September 1st, and we are around Foxboro cable access. I would love you to tell people in Foxboro, especially, the final message to let them know that you'll be the next congressman.
Sure. So I guess I would say a few things. One, so I rode my bike through Foxborough as with every town. I started, of course, at Gillette Stadium. Was happy to see there was still one picture of Tom Brady there. Went through Oak Knoll Farm and then to Route 1 to a lot of the businesses and talking to people. And I heard the same things that I heard in so many other parts of our district, which is, how can you get Congress to just start getting stuff done for the American people? How can you help us make sure that our financial security and our children's is something that we can believe in? And this is what I've focused my private life on, both in creating jobs and with my nonprofit around education. This is what I'll focus on down in Washington. I've also clearly worked effectively in building creative solutions to tough problems in a way that everybody wins. I mean, my companies create products that no one's thought of before, and delivers value to the community as well as to companies and investors. This is what I do. This is what I'll do down in Washington. And I cannot commit. I can't guarantee it's going to work. But what I can guarantee is that if people honor me with their votes and they send me down to Washington, they're not going to get the same old going down to Washington. It's not going to be the same old politician who's going down there to fight everybody. It's someone who's going down there to get things done. I'm not going down for a lifelong career. I'm going down to get things done. And I hope that I can convince people that I'm worthy of their vote.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Chris, for being on Around Foxborough today.
My pleasure, Jury. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everyone for watching another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is Julie Love. Our executive director is Michael Weber. Our director is Paul Beck. If you missed another episode of Around Foxborough, you can come to our website, fcatv.org, and click on Around Foxborough. Thank you everyone for watching.